lighten up the spirits right now, without spirits, alcohol right now. So this was about branding and marketing. A very interesting incident that I heard. You people should also listen to this. The Audi salesman, the Audi car salesman, was trying to sell this car to this person from North India, you know, typical North Indians like we are. And he said, sir, you know, why Audi is expensive? Why the rates are so high? You know, these airbags that just pop up and, you know, there's going to be an accident. And, you know, there's absolutely compression belts and everything is modern and spectacular out here. To that, the response of that man from North India was, now listen man, I've got this Mata Rani ki chunni on my mirror. I've got this Nimbu lemon dangling from the front, you know, bumper of my car. I've got Hanumanji sitting right there and I've got Ganpati there. Tu bas price thal lekar. So, you know, whatever branding or marketing people, use, we North Indians have a way of overruling everything and getting our way off. Yeah? Right now, I'm great.
Absolutely. We'll hear more of that.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, let's proceed further. Welcome to all you delegates to this lovely session, which is called All Things I Did Do. I'm your host, Vandana, and a few instructions. There's a fire exit right here on the left-hand side. In case there's smoke, please crawl on the ground because that way it's easier to breathe. I hope nothing happens. It won't, so don't worry. And evacuate the basement. And in case the smoke is high, please do not climb the stairs or use the escalators. Just wait for the help to come from security.
There's a safety instruction for you. Don't stand under the projector.
Is there? I don't know about that one.
Just putting your name.
And I would request all of you to please put your mobiles on a silent or an inaudible or a vibrator mode. Yeah, I hope everybody is stuff. Thank you. Well, I would like all of you, I would insist that you should, whenever you're posting on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, use the EEMA handle or hashtag EEMAGINE 2019 or EEMA, hashtag EEMA. And also I would like all of you to join in our pledge to make EEMAGINE a green zero waste festival. And now it's time to acknowledge all our sponsors. Key partner, Event FAQs. Continuing human touch in hospitality and catering. Official hotel, Pullman Hotels Resort at New Delhi. Official partners, Orange Productions, Modern State Service, Yellow Rentals. Beverage partners, Jack Daniels, Carlsberg. Registration partner, EventBot. Conference app partner, The Key. Internet streaming partner, WebPix. Technology engagement partner, SEES Hub. VR partner, Interreality Extending the Real. Touchscreen partner, TouchWorks, making technology work for you. Superstructure partner, Rama Tent House. Beverage service partner, Bar Solutions LLP, mobile bartending and liquid catering. Photography and video coverage partner, the wedding premiere by G Films, Sumit Productions, Stimulus to Still. Ground transportation partner, Asian Cars, Coaches and Care. Security partner, every time secure services, we secure your world. Special structure, Cube Trust, Sardana's Exicon Services. Please come.
I have my station. I'm doing my own.
Cheating the real. Copy करेंगे.
I love you guys. Good show. Keep it up.
3D sculpting support, model artistship, trophy partner, the award gallery, catering partner, Fork and Spoon, Purple Berry Catering by Rahul Makkar, media partners, Eventa.com, Event Industries Global Business, networking platform. And BW Clause, EE, that is everything experimental, wedding affair, wedding TV. Hospitality partner, Amigos Alliance, come, test drive the world. And Heading Wedding, hospitality logistic events. And finally, last but not the least, beverage service partner, IFCS Indofusion Cocktail Services. So now it's time to introduce our moderator and our speakers today. As I say that best part about marketing is should not ever feel like marketing. So our speakers will be discussing the challenges of marketing and branding and the necessity to create a brand value for clients through a 360-degree strategy. So let me introduce our speakers to you. First of all, we have Vandana Verma, the COO of ARC Worldwide India and leads the publicist. Under her leadership, the ARC Worldwide today has become the leading brand, activation and experiential agency in the country, with clients such as Hewlett-Packard, SBI, Hotstar, Shell, P&G, and I could just go on and on and on forever. Vandana Verma. Then we have a very acclaimed person, Preeta Singh, President, Teamwork Arts, India. She leads marketing, alliances, sponsorship for Jaipur Literature Festival. As the CEO of Pusettima, also she was once upon a time, and Executive Director at Ogilvy Advertising. She recently conceived and raised funding and launched India's first multidisciplinary arts festival, the Serendipity, is that it? Okay, I'm sorry. Arts Festival in Goa for Munjal Foundation in record time. Presenting Preeta Singh. And we have our moderator today, Mr. Pramod Gaikwad, Director and Partner in ICE Global. Pramod has expertise in brand communication, brand amplification, event design and execution. Pramod calls himself a serial entrepreneur. He has grown his business over a variety of domains. He's an avid gamer, he's a voracious reader, and an automobile enthusiast. Of course, I always say a loving husband, a doting father, and a great friend to me. So over to Pramod.
Thank you.
All the things I do.
Mr. Rustic, please come ahead, sir. That's Vinod. Okay, so guys, we're doing a very informal conversation. Okay, it is not a panel discussion. We aren't going to present information to you. This is a round table with no table. Okay? So what we attempt to do today right now here is have a conversation. So the closer we are, the better it is. If you can find a seat in the front, nothing like it, please come and join us. And we want a very interactive presentation. We want you to ask questions, we want you to challenge the opinions being given. Okay? What we're talking about here, and the subject at hand, is all the things I do. Now this, in principle, is a very given fact about the event business. All of us in the event business understand that we do a lot of things. We try different things, and after we do them, we make our mistakes, and eventually a path follows. You know, systems come afterwards. We're all experimenting with different things. Experimenting with rural marketing, experimenting with technology, various things. Systems come afterwards. Now, I'm privileged to have two extremely powerful women in the panel over here, both of whom have created pathways across over 2 decades. I'm not giving out their age, I'm just telling you that they're very experienced, right? And we're going to learn from that. Now, all of us are entrepreneurs, so we need to get a sense of the room. Okay, how many here are business owners or CEOs, directors? Super. How many of us over here are in activation space? Okay. How many of us here are in the MICE space or the corporate brand event space? Super. How many in the wedding space? Okay. Now that's for us to get a feel of who we're talking to. Okay, to get an idea of the mix of the room. Now, before we delve into the topic of all that we do, all that I do, the topic essentially focuses on 360-degree brand solutions. Okay, we talk about strategy, all-round strategy, and so on. So before we throw the jargon in there and sound very cool, I'm going to ask both the panelists that what are the nuances of creating a 360-degree strategy? I'm talking brands here. Unfortunately, this doesn't pertain to weddings. Okay, it also brands. And brands could be anything from activation to mall activities, rural marketing, it could be with MICE events, launches. But in essence, the industry has evolved tremendously across 2-3 decades. Sorry? It could be your own brand as well, absolutely. Right? You're creating IPs, festivals, and so on. So since Vandana comes from a network agency with which is aligned to Publicis Group, she has the resources of that entire group. Her perspective is going to be remarkably different to Preeta's perspective, who's been with agency earlier and is now building festivals. So I want to ask both of you to define the nuances of a 360-degree brand campaign.
You want to go?
Coffee came first.
Hi.
No, to them, tell your name.
Sorry.
Very
I'm going to start by responding to what I've just been asked, which is what is, when we're looking at something and we're looking at a brand, what is a brand at the end of the day? We all know what a brand is. A brand is something that resides in the heart and head of the receiver, whoever he or she is. So when people say there's nothing so, it's very interesting how you put the brand together, and that's where this, whether you call it jargon or an approach, I like to call it an approach to building brands, which is the 360 approach. It's one of the approaches, which essentially what we're trying to do is keep the brand alive, keep it engaged wherever that person that is your target consumer is. So whether he's out of home, which most of us are spending most of our time, whether he's at a particular place, if you're traveling, you're at an airport, basically engage and keep the brand alive in a person, in a consumer's world and life. And I think that therein lies the opportunity, therein lies really the big space that we're all in this room concerned with, that how do we seize the moment, get into this, and that is one part of it. Some of you, as you said, when you raised your hands, it's a very vast space. And I think at the end of the session, it will be interesting to see whether we've arrived at a consensus or understanding of what the real opportunity is. So to me, the 360 branding is an approach to keep the brand alive and engaged with the consumer wherever he or she is.
So to me, 360 integrated campaigns actually are the need of the hour, because gone are the days when one television commercial or one print ad is going to really sell anything. And actually for all of you in the room, I think it's a great business to be in, because this is the way to go and this is what is growing. If you look at any brand today, they're all shrinking their traditional advertising businesses and spending money in retail, shopper, events, activation, rural, and the spends there are increasing a hell of a lot. Because obviously 360 integrated campaigns is what one needs to be able to touch everybody across, and different mediums within the 360 actually serve different purposes. So there's an awareness purpose, there's an experience purpose, there's a purpose of doing something at point of sale, there's a last mile purpose, and so on and so forth. So to me, actually, there is no other approach today apart from a 360 approach, because traditionally the advertising business, and coming from a network agency, I can say this, is actually dying completely. And it's really the only way to build a brand would be a 360 approach.
You got a question?
I'm going to pass the mic around because we're recording it.
You
Yeah?
sit down, I'll just go fast.
Hi, I totally agree with your point of view about the 360 approach, but the question is, who takes a lead here? Ultimately we are at times seen as an event expert or a BTL expert. If we even come out with a great idea, do you think the client will be okay to be taking a punt on doing a complete digital or somewhat an ATL campaign also around it? Sometimes the ideas are good as well, but do you think we should be taking a lead there proactively?
So if I were to take that question, I kind of break it up by category.
Yeah.
There are some categories where it is critical that actually BTL takes the lead. Media dark being one of them. Automobile, which is in the doldrums these days, actually no ad is going to sell a car, but a test drive is, and a mall activation is, and a dealer distributor, a dealership activation is. I would say if one can bring some merit in the suggestion that you are giving to the brand, back it with information that the client is not really expecting, and this could be in the form of data. This could also be, I've done many campaigns where above the line has actually taken from an act, right? And an act is a below the line experiential piece. There are many categories, I would say maybe not FMCG, but many others, where you have done a below the line campaign from which above the line
Something is
communication has been derived and taken to wherever it needs to be taken to. So if you can back it with data merit, with some competition landscaping, I see no reason for clients not to buy that, because if you look at even the client in structures and teams, who has more say these days? It's sales, it's distribution. All of these functions are actually all culminating to the CMO, right? So it's sales, it's distribution, it's really their marketing budgets are kind of agile to the amount of stuff that is going off the shelf. Every client today has an experiential cell within. So we have agency people actually going and sitting in clients. So obviously there's a huge need, for our kind of work, for sure. So definitely.
So there is merit. We should
Huge
kind
merit,
of,
yeah.
even if we are not expected to go and pitch in for the 360.
I think you should actually take every brief that you get on the table, you should push the bar out.
We're already doing that with digital. Most of the companies, when they are giving a plan,
Yeah.
they are putting in a digital leg to
Bucket,
it. For sure.
yeah. But I'm just saying today, what is digital? Does a short film, which is fake, which you've shot in a studio, does it work? No, it doesn't. But when you do an on-ground thing, and then you take digital content off that, there's a certain amount of realism to it, and there's a certain amount of brand ethos which is embedded into it, which is natural. It's, it goes viral a lot easier than a self-promoted film, right? So to me, actually, brand experience is pretty much the ethos and essence of every piece of communication going out now. Pretty much.
If I can add to that, your point that is if we come up with an idea, whether you're doing activation or whatever, will the client listen? I think it goes back to there's a structural issue today in the country, at least in India. All the agents, all the big spenders have AOR agencies or have people. A lot of the work that's sitting there is at best, above the line stuff. Now digital, which is growing at a crazy pace, but and there again is pretty fragmented. There's an opportunity to get it. But I think the bigger opportunity is like organizations, like trade bodies, like EEMA and stuff. If they would grow and professionalize, when I use the word professional, I use it with caution. I think it is to understand what the brand needs, what the business needs, which is much easier for a network agency, because you're already in there. You know what the brand requirement. When you go out with a great, things like Kan Khajura, you can go on and on. There are hundreds of ideas that they didn't come from a network agency per se. They came from even a smaller unit. But when you're part of a network, it gets to the client faster with more authority. So I agree with her. Keep bashing, keep raising the bar, and clients are dying to get stuff that will deliver ROI and efficiency. And if yours does, it will win.
Thanks.
Thanks.
If I can also answer a part of your question.
Yes.
I think the point of not being taken seriously because we are just event experts also stems from the positioning, and that's a different discussion for another day. It's the positioning of our industry to the client. So we are not vendor to the client needs. We are knowledge partners. We are people who are adding, we are a part of their last mile. We are a part of their marketing. And if that positioning is going to inherently be communicated day in and day out, I think that shift is also going to come.
They will listen, yeah.
So very interesting points here. The important part is that, being from the network, Vandana says that the budgets for ETL is shrinking. People are spending more on below the line, on innovative kind of media. But here's the question to ask you. What are the challenges that brands are facing, and how do agencies like ours deliver on those? What are the opportunities emerging out of those challenges? Because obviously, we can stimulate the audience. A print ad, a TV commercial cannot touch the audience, you can't evoke an emotion, right? You can't drive a sale. So what are the emerging opportunities arising out of the challenges that brands are facing that we should look at in our planning of businesses?
So, to me, I think the three key challenges are ROI for one, expanse for the other, which is how now digital ads have become so big, because you want to geographically speak to a lot more people than just that activation or just that brand experience. So ROI, geographies, and how does one actually truly impact last mile? I don't think think there's any point doing anything for any brand if they're not going to finally sell, because everybody wants to do what they want to do to sell. And if we can kind of, make sure that our ideas, our measurement parameters, our data inputs, and anything else that powers our respective ideas can kind of address these three things, then I think we're home. There was a time like 3 years ago, one would turn and say, this business is no longer, is not transparent, but I think we've crossed that over. And we now understand, there are multiple modules. It gives me huge pleasure to say today that in our agency, there are more BTL retainers than ATL retainers. Wow. And we were in a situation where this business actually was a project-based business. So nobody would really invest in offices and infrastructure and people because you didn't know where the next project was coming. But today, brands are like, give me a shopper strategy. And then they're like, okay, let me tie you in for 2 years. Because any shopper strategy will not show you impact before 6 months, right? So I think there's a huge shift. But if you can typically pick geography, ROI, and last mile, for whatever that we're doing in the brand experience space, I think we're home, pretty much.
I want to add to this because we were discussing this earlier. I am from a period in time when the country was opening up. If you look at the post-liberalization, that's when really the communication, advertising, the entire market just took off. There were double-digit growths and stuff. At that time, take a brand like Unilever or even a homegrown brand like Dabur, which had huge, vast rural markets. We still are a rural market. There was no such thing as call it this, call it that. The point was, what she's saying today, you may want to reach, sales is everybody's objective for sure, and building brand equity, but I think more critical is how do you reach those consumers? How do you reach that person with a relevant solution that he or she is going to buy and stick by? And I'm telling you whether it's reach, cost per contact, conversion, the same parameters apply today. Your data points are richer, your technology is enabling you to do this faster, better, and more accountable. But the point is that today there are two, there's an India and there's a Bharat. The opportunities are equally large, and they're not going to disappear at least for the next several decades. So I think there's massive opportunity.
Okay, so now, you have a question, Mr. Kapil?
So I have, I guess, little different but still in line question to do with serendipity. I bumped into this fest online probably because of my love for art, and as you're here, so I'm wondering as in how 360 is implemented for the fest, and how do you calculate ROI given I guess the fest is free of cost for people to attend. So how all the people who are associated and the core purpose. So how you calculate ROI and how you do 360 and where it will take you long?
Interesting question. Should I answer that now or do you want to do it later? Okay. The brief, it goes back to what somebody asked earlier, that how do we get into that conversation with a business opportunity. So here was something, and I'll answer your question in a minute, but the brief was a one-line brief. Can we open up spaces for young Indians, young subcontinent, people from the subcontinent in the arts space? So given that then dictated will the festival be paid or free access? Will it, how many young people will it engage on ground, online, and not just in India but the subcontinent? So given that brief, yes, it was a complete 360 approach, and the return on investment that you say is happening because they measure on different things. How many people reach this young subcontinent project, for example, which I think cuts across, it has a couple of hundred people from Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal, India, whatever, who are engaged, and Riaz Kumo was the curator, where young artists who are doing some cutting edge work are picked up and then go through residency, mentored and whatever, and provided a market. So their parameters and the assessment is very different. It's not like a commercial entity like a Sunburn or whatever. So the festival created by a foundation for a very specific purpose uses, for example, we had 50 patrons. It was not just going to a sponsor to get money. It was people like the Sangeeta Jindals and the Godrej's, people who are committed to doing this along with the thing. So it's a very different approach. I hope that answers your question.
So it's primarily to promote the landscape only. It's
no, it's primarily to help the artistic talent that exists in the subcontinent get a space where they can meet the masters of, in their respective, the 7 disciplines that were chosen, and more important, be able to showcase their work and network with the right kind of people, and so on and so forth. So there's some
one
amazing
is more to do with promotions. Does Goa help in promoting the fest in certain way?
Well, I mean, we can go on and on, but the reason why this was housed in Goa was one. It's perhaps the only place in the country which is extremely open and a lot of creative people reside there, and it allows a lot of, it's multicultural in that sense. And I will say no more because a lot has changed.
So things have changed in various locations. Now again, I'm going to jump back into the past 2 decades, okay? And I'm asking the question because 2 decades ago, as some of my friends here know, I was in Mudra, and then I moved to Lowell Intest. In both agencies, I started off the BTL wing and ran it till I finally got some common sense and started my own. Okay? So now, in the past 2 decades, obviously things have spruced up quite a bit. The bar has been raised, it's gotten more professional. From your points of view, and especially you, Preeta, in terms of what is the landscape change you see? What is the shift you're seeing in terms of agencies and their offerings in the past 2 decades?
I think the one key thing that's changed over the 2 decades that I can see is it's all got very, very professionalized. When I use the word professionalized, I don't mean that today it was not professional earlier. They've got organized, they've understood, like the gentleman there said, that if I've got a great idea, how do I get it across to the person who's going to buy it, the brand owner? Earlier it was mainly people were implementing one-off or whatever. Today the people coming with a full 360 solution to something. When they're coming up with an activation idea or they're looking at who is it for, how are they. So I think the agencies have got smarter at it, they've got more professional, that's one. And when I say professional, I'm saying you know more about the brand and the consumer than you perhaps earlier would be, more implementing. The second thing that's happened is that I think because the networks have gotten and a lot of different disciplines are being offered, whether it's the WPPs or the Publicis or whatever, all the groups, there's a lot of talent pool that's come out there. So, you may have had exposure in an agency. I set up Ogilvy Live, which then went on to become, what it is today, outreach and all has come together. So I think, lots more professional talent is available, lots more, people who have bigger ideas and able to reach the brand owners. I think that's one. And the other thing is just sheer exposure. I mean, if you look at how Sunburn has been created, I mean, I think it's quite a phenomenon from where it started with EDM music and the way they handled it. The challenge is how you sustain these things, and I think that's where we talk about that in a while.
For me, actually, the proof of the pudding is that in the last 2 decades, every agency has only acquired a non-traditional business. The number of acquisitions that have happened in the last 2 decades for businesses which are non-TVC, non-print are phenomenal. I mean, Denso is actually still doing that, one after the other. And for everyone like you who set up their own business, you do want to sell soon enough because we're here to buy. But I would say that the 2 decades has been, most agencies, especially the sizes of ours like DDP, WPP, Publicity, etc., are insourcing as opposed to outsourcing. To give you an example, today the network has digital, retail, shopper, their own production house, so one is not even giving out work for TVC work outside of the group, data center, consultancy, and communication. So I'm just saying, I think there's a huge realization that the brand could have any problem, but the solution is not a television commercial. So the way the agencies are now approaching this is, what is your key brand challenge? What are the key purchase barriers that your brand has? And the solution to that could be omni-channel. And if it is to be omni-channel, then somehow every agency feels the need of housing all of that under one roof in the last 2 odd decades.
But let me just play devil's advocate to that, because I've been through the whole cycle of pure advertising, and then we did retail, we did graphic design, we did the full Monty to look at what are the future kind of opportunities in the country. But I'm telling you that I believe, and I'm a firm believer, that every specialization cannot be housed under one roof. They are specialists. You guys out here are specialists in one area or the other. And that's wherein, if you can invest enough into that and be able to get access to 1 or 2 brands that have faith in your offer, you can build an extremely successful, extremely unique business. And India is about that. We're not one country. We are not monocultural, like France or whatever. We are a subcontinent with masses of opportunity. I think specializing and scaling up are 2 things. If they go hand in hand, and I'll talk about the Jaipur Lit Fest as a little small example in a while, in the 6 years that I've been associated with the growth, and Rajitri, my colleague, is sitting there. We worked on it together, and there's no dearth of opportunity to grow.
So I don't know, but from my understanding, this business is very person-driven. Whether you like it or not, the truth of the matter is, this business is very person-driven. Festivals are built, IPs are built because the person has got a vested interest in it. Right? Brands trust individuals who breathe the same efficacy as a brand. So network agencies have got the advantage of data, information, alliances. But I see a lot of strength happening in terms of the fact that we know what we're doing. There are a lot of agencies I know that do a lot of work abroad because they got networks built abroad. And I don't see network agencies doing that. Now Vinod, for example, does tremendous amount of work internationally. And these are the corporate brands, these are not wedding. The corporate brands who will work with Vinod's team because he knows the market and can deliver. So this debate can go on, right, in terms of what's better. I think at the end of the day, what finally matters is the value that the brands get. And in that sense of the word, there are still big opportunities for us. There are certain brands, certain industries that are media dark. They cannot advertise. And there are opportunities huge available for that because we can do stuff in reaching the audience. Now here again is something that we want to talk about, that what are the opportunities here and what are the possibilities with these? Because gone are the days when you simply send a canter out into a rural marketing area, put a banner out there with one band baja and say come and see our brand. There are so much innovation possibilities within this space because the power of our business technically is touch and feel. We can stimulate, we can demonstrate, we can sample, and much more. So here again, I'm going to put a question to both of you, is what are the challenges and what are the opportunities for our kind of agencies, network and non-network agencies, to really bring home the buck in terms of brands in these kind of markets?
I think there are 2, if you look at the opportunities, as I keep saying, there's no dearth of opportunity. But the key barrier or the thing that holds a lot of people back is scale. Is a process and like an SOP that will give you the same way that you're going to function in a Tripura or you're in a Tamil Nadu. And I think a lot of the network agencies or a lot of the ones who've been able to aggregate and get scale are very good at setting up these systems. So I think the opportunity therefore is collaboration. It stands to reason. But having said that, I think the bigger kind of barrier, if I was to say, or therefore the opportunity as the flip side, is that even a Unilever or even a large brand, whether they're global or local, they are constantly auditing and looking at efficiencies. They're constantly auditing and looking at new creative, solutions. So, and today, more and more the digital agencies, the smaller startups, because they are very, very creative in their solutions and their ability to survive, also have an ability to create some really nifty ideas, really, and they're in touch with what's happening. So I think there is no, in my view,
So you're talking about scale, you're talking about
scale and a certain way of working so you can deliver reach. Nobody, today you go and talk to a petty line, they'll say we don't want to talk to you unless you can reach so many lakh kids. Now can any one agency reach that? No, Kid Stuff tried it, many have tried it. So they then, as she said, they either set up something in-house or work with a network agency who then manages, becomes the intermediary to make sure those 500 agencies work together. I'm saying why not look at it the other way around? Why can't 30 of you get together? 30, and then say, okay, here's a consortium, we're going to work in this manner. Which then requires, and I think we can see it across so many, look at the elections, I mean 50,000 crores spent, where did it get spent? Somebody spent it in this country, and the results are not that. And today everything is transparent thanks to the way payments are done and stuff. So I think there's a massive opportunity. I'm very bullish.
Vandana, what's your take on this?
So we talked about media dump.
Yes.
Media dump is a category.
You've got some interesting work happening with ITC, you can talk about that as well.
So media dump is interesting. It's funny how the government is making it tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher for alcohol and cigarettes to do anything, especially in this country. I have to say 60% of our business currently is media dump because they're key spenders in the BTL space. So it's a two-faced coin. I think media dump's biggest challenge is to work around the rules and regulations of how they can really get out and reach to somebody. Or I think one of the biggest rules on media dark is I cannot speak to a consumer who has no intent to consume me. So if I am not going out to buy a cigarette, I cannot sell you my brand. If I'm not intending to buy a drink, I cannot sell you my brand. Which is one of the biggest challenges in this country. And now surrogate is also becoming more and more difficult to do around this category. So which leaves us with, one of the key things that have worked for us in the media dark category has been, our ability to be able to find unique touch points which are not regular. So what have we done with where media dark category is being sold? Have we managed to find a way around the law and created a unique touch point on consumption or sale or channeling that media dark category? How have we done things like associations with large IPs and other surrogate things and actually taken it to point of sale? Have we been able, and when I say touch point, I mean, we've literally created pack presenters which drive sale. So it's an unappealing pack of cigarettes which has lungs and guts all over it, especially in India, and it's getting worse. What can you do to make it a little bit more appealing? So pack presenters and the way we are positioning at point of sale, etc., has gone a long way in people purchasing it. The other thing we've done because media dark cannot do traditional advertising, the other thing we've done is we've always had the intent of collecting data back. So market surveys for cigarettes, HoReCa activations for alcohol, we have actually managed to capture each interaction in the year for that brand. He just mentioned ITC. What we've done on ITC is we have 30 lakh data through a market survey on when we're sampling cigarettes at pan bidi stores or smoking lounges or HoReCa outlets, etc., where there's intent to purchase or intent to indulge. That 30 lakh data today is actually sitting with 4 data scientists in our agency, and they are churning serious analysis and analytics out of it in terms of inputs in sale, inputs in distribution, which is actually saving money for the brand. They are not circulating flavors which are not doing good in certain regions of the country because the data captures that kind of stuff. When should they be doing clove? Which are the heavy months in the year? And this kind of input when you do in media dark, where you actually use the data to better your campaigns year after year after year, trust you me, clients get completely trapped in your conversation. The data is lying on our servers because by law they can't have it. They don't know how to, unengage themselves from us. The data scientists are coming up with such crazy insights on what they can do on pack, how they can work around colors, what can they do to accessorize the cigarette, and so on and so forth, that most media dark brands have been with us on an average of anything between 7 to 9 years, which is a long engagement.
This is such an interesting discussion for me because it's a generational thing. For me, media dark is not this. For me, media dark is not only TV. Today, only a third of India is accessed through digital. 2/3 of India is still sitting there. Not only no electricity, it's also not being reached in any meaningful manner. So I think if I was to look, certainly what Vandana just said is super critical. I mean, there is no doubt about this. All the science around it, artificial intelligence is playing. I mean, thanks to Alexa and whatever, we know what's happening to our lives. But and through targeted marketing, where the other day I was passing a Marks and Spencer in London, and I'd shopped something the previous week. They had my data and they had my size, so they said, "Hey, we've got this going." And I'm saying, "Excuse me." I mean, so the point is that all that's happening, and it will happen. And she said, the data is sitting with you. You're the king. You can do lots of stuff with it. But I'm talking about India at a larger level, which is truly where the media dark areas are. They are huge, and there's still tons of market, place sitting there, which the marketeer wants, and that's an opportunity which many people are, seizing, and I don't think there's any dearth of it. And Geo is actually enabling it. I think 60,000 or whatever kilometers of fiber optics. But I mean, I have a different view. I believe they first give it to you free, and then they've got to you by the short and early.
So the very interesting part of what you're noticing is the fact that media dark means reaching out to the rural markets that you can access. But on the other hand, what Vandana is saying is that the agency is now offering data scientists in-house.
Yeah.
So gone are the days when the agency, the client would do, commission a research, get their own analysis done, and then give you a brief, and then you work the creativity out. We're talking of times where agencies today have got their own analysts on board, collecting their own data which they own, churning out solutions based on that, down to packaging, colors, and everything else, and you've got the client, and the client doesn't move. So the game is changing quite drastically. And this is important for agencies like us, who are standalone agencies, to realize that one needs to start investing and adding value at a very different level altogether. If you're expecting to grow in this market segment, and we don't want to be wiped away by network agencies, so to speak, or got access to clients, to the ATL accounts and PR accounts and so on, the value churn out of what we are doing has got to start jumping. We can't only be vendors in our minds. We can't be specialists in creativity. We've got to start talking about ROI. We've got to become consultants. Now, shifting the topic slightly away, the fact is that the power of our business, irrespective of who we are, is in the touch. We reach out to people, we make a difference, we demonstrate, we get them emotionally. It's something that a TVC cannot do. You can emotionally move a person. A soundtrack will move you, right? And part of our business is the first contact. And we are at the best in the world at doing festivals. We have festivals every week, every month in every region. We're celebrating something all the time. Now these are opportunity points for all of us, right? Now both our esteemed panelists have done remarkable work in this space. But let me start with you, Preeta, because you've done some amazing work with Durga Puja and with the Kumbh Mela. So why don't we start over there if we move to Vandana, because that will give us a little more contemporary stuff in it.
See, at the end of the day, what we've been discussing is the space that all of us are in right now is the non-above the line or the non-mass media space. It's really creating those experiences, the touch and feel. So it's really creating an experiential environment in which the consumer can engage with the brand. So if you go back for decades, Asian Paints has been doing something called the Sharad Shaman, which is the Durga Puja is like the ultimate festival in Bengal. And this was something that came out of an insight to say that what is it that really brings the Bengali person to kind of forget everything and really celebrate their existence, their being, etc. And we came to this thing that is during the Durga Puja when they bring Ma Durga in and they celebrate that. And that's the time when a lot of house renovation, painting, etc. happens. So a simple thing was done. It was very small. It was done in a part of Calcutta. And it was ready to go out there with leading personalities from the cultural landscape. So you had people like Rituparna Ghosh, you had artists, and Calcutta doesn't lack that. So brilliant people from filmmakers to artists to dancers to whatever, going out there and actually judging, or rather, because they have a lot of padas and small areas where each one competes that my Durga is more beautiful than yours, because it's the ultimate how much they can be. So they actually got this team together, and they would go around and then declare that the Salt Lake Durga Puja was more thing, or whatever. This started as a small thing and became a phenomenon that was part of the Durga Puja in Calcutta. And I was there for a few years. I handled the business, and then I was in Calcutta running the business. And I can't tell you, I have never known such emotion. And that was for the brand Asian Paints. And so if you go back to the above the line campaigns of Har Kuch Kehta Hai or whatever, the whole thing synergized. It worked together. Certainly in this particular on-ground activation that was happening, say, in Calcutta. If you pull back and look at a more mass thing, when we did the whole Lifebuoy work for Unilever way back, it was to get into villages. Now villages, the source of water, whether it's a pond or whatever, is where all life exists. You drink from it, you bathe in it, you pray to it, etc. And just to sanitize and make it a little more presentable and hygienic, a certain amount of enhancement was done, tiling, etc. And a space was created where hygiene was talked about. Wash your hands, wash your body, brought to you by a small little Lifebuoy logo. The primary healthcare centers, which were like a black room. I've been to some of them. There was no light, no visually, no nothing, like a hole, but had to be done, so it was done. Enhanced clean, height chart, blah, blah, blah. The goodwill that the brand got, and therefore then the sales and the preference and whatever, was unprecedented. And that's how today, that was in a rural India in a different time. Today the same thing's happening in an urban setting, in a multi-brand context or whatever. And you can go on and on. Recently, the Kumbh thing that happened, the thalis that were done with the Lifebuoy message that have you washed your hands. So it's the same idea. The central thought is the same. The execution, the opportunities, and what you do with it changes. So it's very simple. We can go on and on. We've done lots of such work even now with our festivals and all, and it's working very well. That's how brands come back.
So what I find remarkable, the brand is attached to its core purpose or core communication. It's about hygiene. It's staying with hygiene. But the agency is innovating and finding different ways to say the same message in different markets. Now, what I want to share with you is not my story. It's her story. But I found it absolutely amusing to see how small the opportunity is and how big it can become. Okay, so Vandana?
So, we were just talking about this in the speaker lounge. My team's been actually handling bundles, drinks, cocktails, bar consumption patterns, everything, because they have RFID'd everything and they have the data. OML has the data. They are telling Bacardi, listen, shrink this bar, do a bucket in this bar, doers likes this, etc. And that kind of stuff, Bacardi all these years has not been able to do, which OML has been able to do fantastically in 7 years or 8 years of running the festival. It's quite amazing what they're doing for alcohol, packaging and the way it's consumed and cocktailing and whatever. So I'm just saying that it's really about the agency who's taken the brand over to create the experience to add that kind of value. And they are doing, hats off, they're doing a phenomenal job. Bacardi's, I think, locked them in for another 10 years.
And I want to add to that, because I think that is the moot point, that if OML did invest in the art, and it's not cheap, but the long-term value of locking in a Bacardi kind of spend is well worth it.
Yeah.
So you've got to put that investment up front. I mean, going back to Sanjoy's teamwork, where I now work, it's the investment he has made in people, in information, that then helps you go and kind of go up the value chain to be able to do a better deal, a better sale, a better conversation, and therefore lock-ins. Otherwise, how? So I think that's the main thing, is to
Or
have that
there's a Vira who
knowledge.
just put in money in magnetic fields only because of the kind of people and the young people who they were going to approach. They didn't even have beers to serve, but they just had their branding
Well,
because they
Veera
could just
just
do
have
that.
been to the World Cup thing. It's amazing what Veera did.
This is 2-3 years ago
Yeah.
when they
I'm
just
saying
about,
now, you're
And
just
hopefully Thought will have the ability to use,
yeah.
their association in a larger way.
So what's very interesting here is that the fact that agencies are creating brand value. Now, I've been told to summarize quickly because we have 10 minutes left. So I'm going to ask our two panelists to talk about brand value creation. And that Dhruv answers your question as well. That can you go to a client and will they listen? So both of our panelists here have done things that are remarkable, but I'm going to ask them to speak about one thing each, which I believe has got value for us. Okay? So we'll begin with Vandana on this one. And we'll talk about the Vikrant bike, please.
Okay, so this is about 2.5, 3 years ago. As an agent, as a network, we work very closely with Rajiv Bajaj, and after the Hamara Bajaj corporate campaign, the brief on the table was how can we create a corporate, and that was done by WPP. It's one of Piyush's campaigns, I think. He was like, what can we do to really surmount something like that? Everybody still remembers Hamara Bajaj. We have no corporate sheen. Hero is kicking our ass. We are considered a fuddy-duddy brand, and what should really we be doing? And so that was the brief on the table. Our teams got together, and it was around the time when the Vikrant was getting decommissioned. And we actually had a corporate brand brief, which we converted into a product brief. So our idea was, let's build a bike of the nation. Here is a government who is decommissioning the Vikrant and selling it as scrap. Can we buy the metal of the Vikrant and actually make something called the Bajaj B150, which will be a mileage segment bike, and everybody who buys the bike will have bought a piece of history that a warrior ship of this country. I mean, we won so many wars on that ship, which the government is just putting to waste. And we completely changed the paradigm. I just want to tell you guys that it took us 9.5 months to take out a TVC. We didn't need a TVC. It was a complete BTL launch. We had close to 75,000 bikes booked in a 2-week window, where we created a dealership program where people came and gave $5,000 to book the bike without seeing the bike, because it was in production. And on the day of the receiving of their bikes, there was a naval officer in each dealership, 650 dealers, where the naval officer was handing the bike to the first 75,000 consumers. And in 9 months, we sold 2 lakh bikes, and then we took a TVC out which said, oh, this is a really solid bike. So I just want to say that it's really how far you can take the brief. And it doesn't matter, to me, yes, there's a lot of muscle working in a network agency. I've actually not worked in any others, so I wouldn't know that much. And there's 50 lakh costs can be just overwritten because you have that kind of muscle. But I have to say that in many ways, brands are actually, they're good to take an idea from anybody. And as long as they believe that there's merit in what you're going to do, and you're going to be able to give them scale, and there's transparency, and there's ROI, and you can kind of see the whole plan through with them, there's no reason for them not to hear you guys out in any way.
The amazing part is that the agency proposed a product. There was no V150.
Completely correct.
Yeah, it was a new car.
The company has made a bike based on a BTL agency suggestion.
Yeah.
it translated to sales.
And it was the first time that Bajaj won a Cannes. We won a Cannes like a gold. And it was the first time they won it. And you know, that kind of trust. Then today we're doing everything. We're doing their shop fronts, we're doing their BTL, ATL campaigns, we're doing their dealer networks, we do everything for them now.
And also look at the amount of PR. I mean,
Yeah.
we all read about
Huge.
that. I really remember the commercial. I think such a fantastic idea.
So, one very quickly.
Yeah.
So, if the bike wasn't advertised, even before it was launched, how did all these people got to know about it?
Through the dealerships. So there was a lot of point to sale communication that happened. There was a website. There was POSM up saying this is coming, a hero product is coming, etc. There were press conferences. We got the Navy to say that, here's a valiant brand that has actually saved the nation, all that kind of stuff. Everything but a TVC or a print ad kind of garnered momentum for 9 months.
Amazing, right?
Biggest thing I've heard.
It's huge. I know multiple examples.
It's
agencies
actually
have
the
been
power
doing
of
this.
the product. It's really what
It's the
you're
idea.
selling.
You
Yeah.
propose.
I think it's the power of a brilliant idea.
Brilliant idea. Now, on the flip side, we all talk about IPs and we talk about, we want to build an IP. Every year wants to make an IP. And we also know the truth that raising funds for IP is difficult. So, I'm going to put the next one to Preeta because for the Jaipur Lit Fest, she spearheads raising funds. And the brands are not easy to come by. You know how difficult it is to go to a brand and raise money, right? They aren't coming and saying, let's go and sponsor a festival, are they? They're not going to do that. But I will let her talk to you about one thing which you did with Dove and what the valuation was. And here again, I'm drawing to the fact that it's not about where you are, but the power of the idea that you can bring to the table. Okay?
Thanks. The difference between what Vandana was saying was there was a brilliant idea, having understood what the larger brief or the requirement, the brand is getting, with Fuddy Daddy or whatever. But in a festival, when the IP is yours and you're kind of, it's a festival that's free to access, where do you raise the money? And I think that then sets you thinking about what are you creating? You're creating an IP, whatever in our case it happens to be literature festival. So what is the DNA of that brand? What is it that you want? And then you start looking for people or brands that will fit that. And I tell you, I've been at this now for a couple of years with Sanjoy. And it's been an absolute glorious journey. Full of, you take one step forward, you get pushed back twice, 2 steps at times, but that's okay. What's rewarding is, take a brand like Dove, and I was sharing this example with him. Dove is an FMCG brand which won't look outside of the agency, whether the media agency or the creative agency, whatever. We went to them because of a certain, background. And they said, forget it. Neither are we going to get the numbers, nor are we going to. But what they couldn't get, and why we didn't go to, I wouldn't touch a Fair and Lovely, but why we didn't go to another another skin brand was only for one reason. Dove stands for the real woman. There is no model, there is no makeup, there is no nothing. She is the way you see her. So, because being a literature festival, all our content was real. Women of substance who wrote, or they wrote about women, or they were women authors or whatever. So we put together a whole series. And this kind of, thanks to women being half the world's population, there's a lot of content that's created on and around her. So we created something very powerful right through the 5 days. I went and told Dove that how do you operate your brand? You really promote it through about the line and stuff. And here is something that money can't buy you, which is conversations and about women by men and women who were real people. And they took that, they put in money into our festival, they took all that content and put it onto their Facebook page, and the rest is history. The kind of amplification they could do with that, the first qualitatively, what the conversation was. And they got, for example, they got huge amount of criticism for their sister brand, Fair and Lovely. But they took it squarely in the thing because they stood for what women are all about. And that was the beauty, and they come back year and year and we keep growing that engagement. I mean, I have to say that there are hundreds of such examples that we've over the years built. But Dove was a particularly tough one because they have very strict guidelines. But they bought into this because it was real content, which resonated with what the brand stands for.
You wanted them the reachability evaluation?
Well, there is no valuation. It's really when you look at the amount of engagement time that they got, the amount of the reach that they, more than the reach, it was engagement time. The number of, the amount, the minutes spent on those on that particular, series of content and sessions that we put on, and the kind of conversations that ensued thereafter. Very, very rich. So that is where this found the ROI more than work. Because see, what they do is they create a lot of content, they create a lot of conversation triggers to put onto their Facebook pages and stuff. But this worked very differently for them.
Are they locked down for a couple of years?
Yes. So that's the endeavor. They don't come on first year and say, I'm signing in blood for 10 years, forget it. But when they see success, they get success, 1 year, second year, then they sign on. So that's how, I mean, even for any of you all who are, I'm sure you all do the same, is get the confidence, show the results, and then they usually
Okay, so I've got multiple warnings, tap on the shoulder, signaling, etc. saying I'm going to wind up. Okay, so I'm going to wind this up. I won't take any more questions right now. But we've heard the lingo, right? Brands are looking for authenticity. They're looking for ROI, they're looking for expanse in terms of reach, and looking for impact. Last suggestion from both of you. To all of us entrepreneurs here, your learnings in terms of what do agencies need to do, what parts of the business they need to bolster in to meet and be relevant in the next 5 years. Okay, 3 years. What does it take to be relevant for the next 3 years?
I would say raise the bar by getting better talent and skills into your team, so that you can go out there and create higher credibility, impact with ideas that you have. And second would be to understand what the brands and the markets want. I think often we react to a brief. Why? You know which way a Dove is going. Look at the automobile segment, it's crashing. So if you went to a Maruti or an Nexa or whatever, you know what to do.
I would say that I think each one of you in your individual capacity should try and build as many collaborations as you can, because that's when. So at one level, I understand it gets very tough to invest, but nothing stops us from collaborating with unique propositions. Your own skill, tie in other associates, partners who can actually work with you to create, hypothetically saying, for example, in-branded gaming solutions. For example, gaming is becoming so big. And it's all in the experiential space because there are white good companies who are creating experience centers, and gaming is so integral to that. So to me, I think it's kind of critical that if you really want to stay relevant, doing the plain Jane work will fatigue your conversations in many ways with brands, and collaborations work miraculously. The whole consultancy business works on collaborations. We should learn from them. And secondly, I think data has huge power. I don't think brands understand what it means to do our business is a one-on-one engagement. It's authentic data. It's not what they're buying off something, most of which is dead. If we can work towards applying our briefs back in and making them more impactful, making our solutions larger, bigger, scalier through data, I think we'll stay relevant for times to come.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a long conversation. I think that is a fantastic job. Thank you for sharing.